Have you ever looked back at your childhood and thought something was so deeply wrong, but you just couldn't name it? Or maybe you could name pieces of it, but never quite grasp the full depth of the dysfunction? Maybe your family looked picture perfect to everyone else, but things never felt right to you. Maybe you were left alone too often or pulled too close in ways that stole your childhood. Maybe love in your family came with strings attached or didn't come at all. Most survivors of childhood trauma assume their family was uniquely dysfunctional or that they were the problem. But the truth is, toxic family systems follow patterns. What you went through isn't rare, and what it left behind isn't a flaw in you. Today's video and those coming over the next few weeks form a series about the hidden principles, practices, and patterns that define dysfunctional families. Not just bad behavior or surface level dysfunction, but the deep, unspoken systems that quietly shape how we love, trust, and survive. What we call anxiety, conflict avoidance, or relationship issues in adulthood can easily be traced back to the emotional rules we learned as children. These rules weren't written down, but they shaped everything. Today, I will walk you through the first two, and over the next 2 weeks, we'll cover the remaining five to get through all of the seven toxic family systems. I see these systems again and again as a trauma recovery coach and the lasting emotional wounds they leave behind. I'll also share healing insights you can begin to carry with you moving forward. And as you listen, I want to invite you to do more than just take in information. I want to gently invite you to reflect and feel into your own story. You don't have to relate to every detail for this to be meaningful, because even just one of these systems can quietly shape how you see yourself, your worth, your relationships, and your world. And recognizing that isn't a weakness, it's the beginning of truth, it's the beginning of awareness. That is eternal wisdom, and that awareness is where healing begins. This is about recognizing the invisible rules you live by and releasing the shame you were never meant to carry. This isn't about blaming your family. It's about giving language to experiences that have gone unspoken for far too long. Because when you can finally name the system you grew up in, you can stop blaming yourself for the symptoms. Naming the system that shaped you isn't just about understanding your past. Naming it gives you the power to reshape what comes next, to rebuild your future. If we haven't already met, hello, I'm Carrie McKenna Reese. I'm a trauma survivor, certified trauma recovery coach, and a complex trauma educator. I help survivors untangle the wounds of their past so they can finally come home to themselves, to live freely, love fully, and feel safe in their own skin. Because at one time, I needed that so badly for myself. If this kind of content speaks to your soul, hit subscribe so you never miss a new video. I share insights on complex trauma, family dysfunction, and emotional healing, and the power of personal reflection and change. Tap the red subscribe button on this video or below. You can even choose to get updates by email or text. You can follow me on social media as well. My links are in the channel description. To those already a part of the Trauma Well tribe here at Carrie Coaching, thank you. Whether you're new or have been walking this path for a while, your presence is seen, valued, and deeply appreciated. Just by showing up, you're honoring your story, and that's not small, it's sacred. In regard to today's topic, what I've learned both in my own healing and through the years of coaching is that these systems we're going to talk about are far more common and predictable than people realize. That's why so many of us end up saying, I thought it was just me. No one teaches us that these wounds are patterned, that they repeat. We are not crazy. We're carrying the legacy of what we survived. So let's get started. I see these highly common, unspoken, toxic family systems again and again in the lives of survivors I work with. They may look different on the surface, but underneath, they shape how we attach, relate, and see ourselves. As I share, I want you to think in terms of your own childhood. Okay, so number one, the disconnected family. This is the family where everyone was emotionally absent. The parents may have been physically present, but there was no warmth, no real connection. Everyone just existed beside each other, right? No one fought, but no one hugged either. Think of it as an emotional Airbnb. All emotions were temporary, transactional, and unrooted. Everyone came and went, but no one truly stayed. Closeness wasn't forbidden, it just didn't exist. This disconnection usually runs through the entire home, not just between parents and children, but between the parents themselves. These homes didn't feel like families, they felt like a collection of strangers living under one roof. The adults often functioned more like roommates than partners, and the children were left to raise themselves or find support elsewhere. These kids were never truly seen. Their parents were checked out, distracted by work, consumed by their own friendships, and lost in secret lives. The children were sometimes sent away to live with extended family, placed in boarding schools, or quietly raised by grandparents or neighbors. This wasn't just distance between parent and child, it was detachment. And let me say this gently. While I may use examples from traditional family structures, these dynamics happen everywhere. They happen in blended families, chosen families, they happen in families of all shapes and sizes. Emotional neglect does not discriminate. The grief, it runs deep, right? Because what's missing isn't just attention. What's missing is intimacy and safety, a sense of being known and emotionally held. Children from these families often grow up feeling like outsiders in their own homes and later in their own lives. Intimacy feels unfamiliar, vulnerability feels unsafe, neglect becomes the baseline, so they don't expect much from others. And when they witness real closeness in someone else's family, it can trigger jealousy, disbelief, or deep discomfort. It's not that they don't long for connection, it's that no one ever showed them how to receive it. In adulthood, this often shows up as chronic loneliness, even inside a relationship, right? The person may be physically present, but emotionally, they're still waiting at the door for someone who never showed up. One of the most heartbreaking and freeing moments in recovery is naming the truth. My parents weren't just busy, they were emotionally unavailable. They went through the motions of having a family without ever truly creating one. That distinction, it truly matters. These households were not child centered. Sure, the bills were paid, the fridge was stocked, but there was no emotional home, no deep belonging, no felt experience of being prioritized, protected, or truly known. Because just like there's a difference between wanting a spouse and wanting to be married, there's a difference between having a family and actually cultivating one. And the difference is felt, not just seen. Now let's talk about number two, the image obsessed family. This is the family that looked perfect from the outside. The lawn was manicured, the kids made honor roll, played varsity sports, and led student organizations. Church attendance was like clockwork, and they even walked up to the altar every week, polished and smiling. Values in these homes were rooted in appearance and status. The belief was simple and suffocating. We must look good no matter what. From a distance, this family appeared to be thriving. They seemed admirable. You'd see a spotless home and a well dressed family, but behind the scenes, the marriage was unraveling and the children were quietly falling apart. Things like sexual abuse, an uncle in prison for drug trafficking, or ongoing extramarital affairs weren't addressed. They were buried. The family didn't just ignore dysfunction, they were invested in hiding it. Secrecy was sacred, pretense was policy. Inside those walls, there was no space for real emotion. Appearance mattered more than authenticity. Conflict was denied, vulnerability was dangerous. When emotional truth threatened the family's reputation, silence became a survival strategy for the children. This was a family that didn't do feelings, right? Especially feelings around shameful situations. Feelings exposed the cracks in the facade. More energy went into suppressing emotion that it would have taken for them to actually feel their emotions. The cost of the mask was authenticity, and that cost was quietly passed down generation after generation. It's generational trauma. Children in these homes grow up learning that their value lies in performance and perfection, and they become masters of the mask, polished on the outside, fractured on the inside. Anything messy or real gets hidden. It's outward success with inward decay. As adults, they struggle with a deep need to get everything right, to be perfect. They fear disappointing others. They don't want to let anyone down. They constantly measure themselves against others. It's chronic comparison, a constant chase for success, and underneath it all, a persistent sense of emptiness. They chase status and achievement to feel whole. Yet joy is non existent and fun feels foreign to them. Rest also doesn't come easy when your worth is always tied to performance. They silence their pain to keep the illusion alive. They struggle with their identity and being seen for who they really are, not just what they've accomplished. They compare, they overachieve, they avoid anything that feels raw, unpredictable, or too human. And deep down, they carry the question, would anyone love me if I wasn't impressive, if I didn't do this or do that? In recovery work, one of the first wounds we unpack is this: love was conditional, acceptance had terms. The adults were so focused on appearances, on what looked good, that they completely missed what their children actually needed. That misalignment doesn't just cause pain, it distorts a child's entire sense of worth. As you reflect on these two systems, take a moment to notice what stirs inside of you. Did you grow up in a house where connection was missing or where image mattered more than intimacy? Write down what stood out, right? What felt familiar, what roles you played just to be seen or safe or to feel safe. Even naming one truth plants the seed of freedom for you. Because the beginning of healing is awareness. When we put words to what we lived, we shift out of self-blame and begin to see the system that shaped us. You're not overreacting. You're not being dramatic. You're remembering. You're uncovering the truth that your body never forgot. If your heart feels tender after these first two family systems, you're not alone. That loss of emotional connection or authenticity in childhood leaves an ache that often goes unnamed. So take a moment and let yourself feel what's rising. Today, we explored the first two systems, and maybe, just maybe, they echoed something familiar in your own story. In part two, we'll continue this journey by exploring toxic systems where love was withheld, roles were reversed, and children were forced to grow up too soon. So take a deep breath, let it settle, reflect on what landed, and I'll meet you in the next video. If you haven't already taken a moment to subscribe, please do that. Subscribe to the channel here at Carrie Coaching so you don't miss what's next. Until then, may you know this: the pain was never your fault, and there is still so much ahead worth healing for.